Saying that you believe in Jesus is not enough. We must.
Okay, so I hope it's okay that I'm stitching your video, because honestly, I've never heard a Christian say stuff like this, because usually Christians, they just preach, yeah, Jesus is real, Jesus died for me, Jesus loved me, I can do whatever I want, sort of thing. Like, I never hear Christians quoting the scriptures you are quoting. Usually that's what me and my brothers and sisters are doing. So anyways, I hope, though, with this video to expound further on what you're saying, so possibly you can receive the love of the truth fully and be saved. Because his name, okay, I'll get into the name thing later, but anyway, so you start with Matthew 7, and I just want to expound on everything you're saying, so possibly, again, that you can have understanding of what his word says, because if you understand that there's some form of obedience we are to do, then maybe you might hear this, maybe you might receive the love of the truth and be saved, because that's the whole reason why we're supposed to be, going out, learning his word, preaching his word, so then possibly other people may hear it and be saved, right? Because it's not just about our salvation, but other salvation. So you started with Matthew 7 with the fifth verse. I think it was Matthew 7 you started with. Sorry. If I go out of order, that's okay. But anyways, I'm just excited. So, beware the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them. So what is the fruit? Okay, there's different parts of the fruit. There's fruits worthy of repentance, fruits of knowledge, fruits of the spirit, fruits of obedience. There's a bunch that goes into fruit, but I want to jump into really quick John 15, because basically Yeshua explains the way how you bear fruit, the good fruit, because you're not going to be able to do it if you're not abiding in his word and doing what it says. Like you even mentioned John 14 through 15 about, if you love me, keep my commandments. So what commandments is Yeshua talking about? He's talking about the 10 commandments, because that's what Yeshua came to bring us back to. I know a lot of Christians are saying that we don't have to do that anymore, but again, if you can hear this, if you have eyes to see, ears to hear, then maybe you'll understand the 10 commandments, that we're still supposed to keep them, because there's a difference between Horeb and Sinai. They're not one and the same. The 10 commandments were verbally given at Horeb, and that's where Israel agreed to do it, and it's even repeated, I think, in Deuteronomy 4. It basically shows that they were given at Horeb, or it's somewhere else in Deuteronomy. Anyway, shows us where they were given. In sacrificial law came after, because Israel transgressed the original marriage covenant by doing, as we know, the golden calf, right? And because of that, everything else was added after, until the promised seed, Yeshua, would come and bring us back to the faith. What is the faith that we're supposed to be doing? The faith, as you were reading in James 2, it's obedience, though, because I'm expounding, so possibly, again, you may hear this. So it's obedience to what? Because what commandments did Yeshua want us to keep? Love God, love your neighbor. How do you do that? To keep the 10 commandments, and then you go and teach your neighbor to do so. But anyways, I want to be reading John 15 to explain about the bearing good fruit, because a lot of people, again, don't know this. So I am the true vine, my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. And every branch that bears more fruit, every branch that bears fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit. So if we want to get pruned, as we keep reading this chapter, basically, the way to be pruned is by obedience, not of our own will, but of his righteousness, and is by grace, conviction through faith is one saved, obedience. So when you're obeying, it's not your own good works, it's his good works that he does through, if you allow him to do it. So again, I'm really hoping that you can hear this and see this, because it's really important that you know this, so you can go preach it to other people. Because if you're going to be preaching on your page, you need to preach truth, so that they can know the truth and be set free as well. So that's why I'm hoping you can receive this, the love of the truth, and be saved, and possibly save others. Okay, so that may bear more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I've spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. And as we keep reading, Yeshua is going to basically say and explain how you abide, how you bear the fruit, the good fruit, all the fruits that we're supposed to be bearing. And it's, again, so important to know this. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is cast out as a branch and is withered, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they are burned. And that was basically what Matthew 7 is saying, right? Because you're either bearing the good fruit, right? The fruits worthy of repentance, fruits of the spirit, fruits of knowledge, fruits of obedience, or you're bearing bad fruit, which is just the opposite of that, is the simplest way to put it, right? Because we're either going to have God's good works, or we're going to have our own works, whether it's sacrificial law or self-righteous works or like sinful works and things like that. We want to make sure we're doing his good works. And what's the good works? That the Father ordained beforehand that we should walk in them. The 10 Commandments, that's what he wants us to keep and still do. It's absolutely still in place. No matter what people tell you, don't believe them. You got to believe in what his word says, for his word's truth. And there's so many, I'm so sorry, I just slammed my water by accident, but there's so many scriptures to show where to keep the 10 Commandments. So many times it's repeated in the Old Testament, the covenant given at Horeb, and not even just the covenant given at Horeb, but the covenant he gave to Israel, the law, to all these things. There's so many indicators that show that, hey, he wants you to obey him, and it's not going to be according to our thoughts or our feelings. So again, I hope you can hear this. But anyways, if anyone does not abide in me, he's cut. Okay, never mind, I just read that. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire, and it shall be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you may bear much fruit. So you will be my disciples. And as we keep reading, you are his disciple if you listen to him, right? If you do what he did. As the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love. And then here we go. This is how he says. So remember what he said earlier in the chapter about abiding in him and him in you, right? If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. This is how we abide, by keeping the 10 Commandments. Circumcision of the heart. We no longer have to do it of the letter, obviously, is what we can't do anyways. But the men, they no longer have to get circumcised with the flesh. It's of the heart. It's like what Paul talks about, Romans 2:28-29. Circumcision inwardly, inward Jew. How is someone like that? How is someone Israel? When they start keeping the 10 Commandments and they get grafted into Israel, and then they're part of God's people and God will be their God. If they stay abiding in him and doing his will, walking like Yeshua did. So anyways, let's keep going. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. How did Yeshua love? So this is also important. So part of what he elevated, so he did elevate and magnify the 10 Commandments. So now it's not just physical, it's spiritual, right? Like with the adultery, murder, so deep. And I'm not going to, because if I go into that, it's going to make the video long, and I'm trying to keep this to the point. But it's like, so he magnified that. Isaiah 42:21 shows that he would magnify the law and make it honorable, right? So what law is he talking about? He's talking about the 10 Commandments, because he put an end to sacrificial law and brought us back to the mercy of God, which is Luke 1:72-79. And then with the love your neighbor as yourself. So he elevated that commandment because it was always in the law to begin with. So it was Leviticus 19:15-18. So if you love your neighbor as yourself, you're going to be rebuking them for their sin. So possibly if they hear you, if they listen to his conviction, they can repent and be saved, and their sins basically will be covered. So that's how you love someone. That is how you lay down your life for the brethren. So it's going to be a tough job. It's going to be hard to do it because a lot of people are not going to want to hear. They are in pride and false doctrine and things like that. But if you just do as he said, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to go well for you. It's going to go well for the righteous, but for the wicked, it's not going to be well with him. It's going to be ill with him. But anyway, so this is my commandment, that you love one another just as I love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all things I heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you, that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit shall remain, that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give you. These things I command you, that you love one another. So love God, love your neighbor. Keep the 10 Commandments, and you teach your neighbor to do so. That's basically how you love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Because that's what Yeshua, when he says that, he's quoting that from Deuteronomy 6. And it's, if you want to read 4-9 to get the full context of what that means. And then when he's quoting about loving your neighbor as yourself, he's quoting that from Leviticus 19:17-18. But I really recommend reading Leviticus 19:15-18 to really understand what he means when he says love your neighbor as yourself, because this is why he basically died for us. He died for us so that we could properly know the way how to love God with all our heart, soul, and mind and strength, and then go and love our neighbor as ourselves by teaching the way how to do so, is essentially what that means. And then I also want to read, because it's also even in John 14 about, like, as you were saying, if you love me, keep my commandments. And if you do this, so if you keep the 10 Commandments, circumcise your heart to obey God and love him with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, he will pray the Father, and he will give you another helper, that he may abide with you forever, the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him, but you know him, for he dwells with you and will be in you. And this will only ever happen if we are obedient to his word. Acts 5:32 also shows this as well.